Hi, everybody. It's Adam R. Jacobson. I am the editor-in-chief of the Radio and Television Business Report, the balanced voice for broadcast media business news. And this is the all-new InFOCUS video podcast, which is presented by .fm, streaming social podcast or broadcast. Get a .fm domain name by heading over to get.fm today. That's the power of live on tape. And me being a radio guy, it's a pleasure to have you here looking at me and taking about half an hour of your time to have a great listen to a wonderful conversation, which I'm about to begin with Andrew Rosen. Andrew is a partner at Miller Kaplan, and he joins us from beautiful downtown Burbank, steps away from Bob's Big Boy in Universal and NBC. Now, Rosen is a familiar figure across the broadcast media industry with more than 2 decades of experience specializing in the operational and financial structures of broadcast and media clients. And we'll both be in Arlington, Virginia from May 18th to the 19th, at least, for the Media Financial Management Annual Conference, which is shaping up to be an all-star event for 2025. Without further ado, let's bring in Andrew Rosen from Southern California. And thank you so much for taking time to speak with us during a very busy time for the broadcast industry.
Very much so. I'm happy to be here, Adam. Thanks.
Well, the state of broadcast media's financial health as we near the MFM conference and as the fiscal year for many winds to its end in so many uncertain ways is really just something that we're talking about all the time. And we're hearing so many different things from so many different sides of the industry. I'm really curious to hear from you, Andrew, what your clients are saying in terms of the macroeconomic environment, how digital is really the secret weapon, and what this means for broadcast radio and TV as we go deeper into a year that has had so many twists and turns over the last 5 months.
The last 5 months, let's talk about the last 5 hours, right? I think that, it's, I think that, the latest thing is the tariffs on China being pulled back. That's obviously a welcome relief for everybody in the industry, at least for the time being. We have a 90-day reprieve. It's been a very topsy-turvy type of situation, to say the least, and it's really not a one-size-fits-all. And that's the scenario that we've seen for a number of years. It's not a one-size-fits-all at a group, because at the end, each market is kind of its own independent being, so to speak. And it used to be that back in the day, those that are in the know, that, the way the top 10 markets went, all the markets went, or if you had, Baltimore and Washington in close collaboration with one another, that the way one would go, the other would go. And so what we've seen over the course of time is that really everything is very dependent on the localism factor and what's happening in everyone's local metros as you kind of walk through. The uncertainty in the scenario is really what's kind of driving a lot of the confusion and chaos that kind of exists. I think that you hear it on the street all the time with regard to there's just so much uncertainty. What's happening with the tariffs today is what's different than what it was just yesterday or 2 or 3 weeks ago. We've seen these kind of scenarios by which money coming into the space is coming in just kind of scattered because nobody really knows where they should be investing in today's environment. Are they going to get goods from China? Are they not? Are they going to get goods from overseas? I mean, I know someone locally in a business that basically said, look, as soon as the 30% tariffs went up in place in one of the Asian countries, non-China, they basically said, we're not bringing our goods in because our margins are going to be crushed. So at the end, there's a lot of things that are happening. We've seen people, at least anecdotally, accelerate their inbound purchases of product and inventory, just basically to prep for what this is. So now you have a scenario by which that there's potentially a need for a faster sell-through, which obviously bodes well because they don't want to have that inventory sitting in their warehouses for longer than it need to be. And so people are accelerating purchases. You saw in March and April, for instance, that we had a much higher car purchase type of scenario because people were worried about the tariff. So people are accelerating their purchases just because of the unknown as well. So all of that kind of plays into everything that happens in the advertising space.
when we look at advertising and we look at categories, automotive still seems to be such a big advertising component when it comes to local media, whether it's TV, whether it's radio. But we hear a lot about tiers. We hear about tier 2, we hear about tier 3. A lot of people may not understand what that means, but that is really important when you start to look at some companies such as Saga Communications, Town Square Media, for example, and some of the privately held operators that are really the bread and butter of how a lot of people view the future of radio in particular, which is focused on small and medium-sized markets. And I'm wondering what you can say about that environment, what that means for those types of companies when we're looking at that lower tier automotive, and what we're looking at in terms of other advertising trends that really kind of set the industry apart in so many ways from their television brethren. Again, being as local as media can be, but perhaps having some unique challenges to catch up with the local digital cycle.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, to me, auto has always been important to the broadcast space. To kind of go back, tier 1, kind of your factory dollars. Tier 2 is more your dealer associations. Tier 3 is down to the dealer level. So that's kind of an important way to do it. When you're looking at things, the tier 3 dealers have always really favored. They've got a lot of audio. They've got a lot of localism. Whereas there may be more factory dollars that may have spent historically on over-the-air broadcast television. That being said, they're all trying to figure out the new path forward themselves. They all have these tariffs that are in place. Some of their manufacturing is in the U.S. versus some that it's coming out. They're all trying to figure out what's happening. But the thing that they still need to do is they still need to sell. And the best way to sell historically has been through mass media and broadcast in general, and that's what pushes the cars off the lot. That's why they've been so steadfast all this time. From a category perspective, there's other categories though that will rise and fall depending on the scenario, right? So during the pandemic, auto basically was troubled, as was the tourism category, but the home improvement category and maybe the HVAC and the attorney category and so many others will pick up in its place. And so it's a matter of staying on top of current trends, understanding what's going on with each of the individual categories and competitors within those to really understand where the next big category is going to come from. So auto is definitely still an important part, but there's a lot more diversification that's happened in the last number of years that hasn't really meant that auto is the only way forward, so to speak. And I think that's an important part of the process, is to always develop new categories. The MFM conference, which we're coming up to here shortly, they're going to have another category. They're going to have another session on advertising in the marijuana space. Not that that's an advocacy for doing it, but at the end, there's always something that's coming through. A lot of elderly people are aging, so there's a lot more independent living and wound care and all other kind of facets that are coming forward. All the long-term type of care kind of things that kind of come through with people living longer lives. Those are obviously good potential categories, and anything that's kind of experiential. People are still spending money. I think that we're seeing that kind of firsthand. They haven't slowed down their spending, even though there's potential signs ahead. So anything kind of experiential. People are still going on cruises. They're still going out of town. They're still buying tickets to sporting events and concerts. And I can't remember how many days, but Beyonce was just here at SoFi for a number of days launching her tour. So at the end, people are still paying for things and spending the money, and they still need to get the word out to the street. So there's going to be categories that are going to be ebbing and flowing over the course of time. It's just a matter of staying on top of those to really understand where things might be headed.
Andrew, with all the focus and attention on digital has seen across upfront presentations this week in New York, has seen in a lot of the quarterly earnings reports that I've gone through extensively, advertisers and audiences are just using streaming platforms more and more. And that means protecting linear media by also ensuring that your content is now available everywhere. So you certainly don't want to shy away from streaming. And as we see a lot of radio and television companies incorporating streaming, I'm wondering if that's added to the valuation and therefore valuations of these companies. Or when we look at the revenue, is it still that core advertising, which of course could prove detrimental, especially if you're looking at television right now, which has so many other opportunities for revenue?
Yeah, look, I think that relationship is the foundation of everything. And where the groups have really excelled is by having the local feet on the street over the course of all these years, and have built up kind of a reputation of being able to help navigate challenges in the space, and advertise to kind of sell the products, the widgets, the services that everyone's at. I think that what's really important is meeting the user where they are, and so it doesn't matter if they are on the internet, and looking at their web page and streaming it from there, or if you're on their app, or if you see it on even a third party, which is obviously happening a lot in the overarching television space with the CTV stuff, that's kind of happening. So I think that you need to meet the user where they are. And so I think that investing in digital assets is a core fundamental. And I think that it's also proven to be well disciplined on the sales side as well. And so when you go into a client, you can actually offer them kind of a 360 holistic view package of different opportunities to kind of say, hey, look, we have this wide funnel and we have the narrow funnel. And not a lot of people have that capability of being able to offer the brand recognition, the brand acknowledgement, the brand reach, and also be able to kind of drill down to a much more finite type of geo-targeting type of scenario. And that's where I think that the broadcast groups in particular have spent a lot of their focus. And look, you've heard people like Bill Wilson and Eric Hellam say that investing in their Ignite platform has also helped bring in linear advertisers, and the linear advertisers have obviously helped them on the digital side. And I think that people are seeing those successes more and more and saying, okay, we can go digital first and build that into a linear buy, just the same as we can actually sell digital into an existing linear situation. And it's really about development and the training of the staffs, to make sure that they have that kind of discipline and understand what's really happening. And so I was fortunate to last week be in a market, and I spent some time at a station and got a chance to basically meet some of the newer people to the space, and to see kind of some of that dynamic energy that I hadn't seen in a little bit, I think is great. I think that some of the youthful exuberance, when you see them actually talking about everything digital and linear together, kind of gives a bit of a different frame of reference than we may have had a little bit in the past too.
Youthful exuberance. That's something that we all need a little bit more of, don't we?
Yeah, look, I mean, to me, I've got the shine on my head, right? So that kind of shows that we've been in the space for a while, right? So
right. And we're going to take a quick little commercial break right now, and then we'll continue our conversation with Andrew Rosen from Miller Kaplan. This is indeed the RBR and TVBR InFOCUS video podcast. We'll be right back.
You're launching the next big podcast, building a vibrant social community, or broadcasting your brand to the world, .fm is your signal to stand out. Don't just stream, streamline your success with .fm. Claim yours today at www.get.fm.
And we're back with the InFOCUS podcast. Hi, it's Adam R. Jacobson over here with Andrew Rosen from Miller Kaplan. So great to have you here. And we thank .fm for being a proud sponsor of this InFOCUS video podcast. You can learn more about what they offer at .fm, indeed, .dot.fm. That's like the URL there. Andrew, you are someone that has some unique insight when it comes to what we've seen in previous down cycles for both broadcast radio and broadcast TV. And certainly we are in uncharted waters in many ways, but I'm wondering if you sense at least a reprise or something similar to what the industry went through perhaps in 2009, perhaps in the early 1990s, if we can go back that far. Is there anything that points to signs of, oh, wait, I've seen this before?
There's certain things that do. Obviously you have different categories that become a lot more important. But we are in a much more fragmented world, in a fragmented area. And so, I think that, I've seen kind of a lot more collaboration in some regards, a lot less collaboration in others. And to me, what I've truly felt, and I've said this, pretty openly to those that I had a chance to discuss, is that, the unifier between us is what's going to drive everybody forward. And the more we're unified in a particular space, the more I've seen successes. And that kind of is a trend that I've seen over the 20 years at Miller Kaplan, as I've kind of looked at measuring a bunch of different media as it kind of comes across, is if they are operating with kind of a unified voice, albeit, making sure that it's done with protection in mind. The fact is that, I've seen better performance when we have a singular voice. When you start to have disparate voices, you do see some fragmentation, and that fragmentation does cause revenue loss. And I've seen that many a time over the course, and you see through different cycles how that interplay works, and how long it takes to basically make it a positive in the numbers, or how quickly it can deteriorate. So I know that there's a lot of things that are on the docket, trying to make things easier buys. How do we buy the media at a faster basis? How do we, make sure that measurement stays true to form and we have a solid currency? Making sure that we have attribution models that are in place and trustworthy for the clients that we have, and those are really, a few of the things that I see that really can alter a trend, positive or negative. And, being able to kind of understand how you are measured against that trend in today's environment. Like I was saying, you have so many variant things that are happening in even a neighboring market. Being able to really understand and assess against your, other currency items, ratings and things like that, and is really an important part of measuring, both current and future successes, and making sure that you can evolve with the times and change a lot more nimbly than we might have in the past.
Mm-hmm. Want to talk about the Media Finance Management Conference, because this year's event, which is going to be at the Crystal Gateway Marriott, starting with a cocktail reception Sunday, May 18th, and then extending into the first 3 days of that week, is really going to be dynamic. May 19th is starting off with a bang. Curtis Legit, who leads the NAB, is going to be there for some remarks. There's a CFO session in which our publisher and president, Deborah Parenti, will be moderating. Is just a wonderful start to what's going to be a really, really strong conference, we think. And especially being in Washington, D.C., you're going to have unprecedented access to a lot of people that are in the nation's capital and really have the pulse of just what the heck is going on. Andrew, is there anything in particular, if you were to isolate two sessions that you're looking forward to, what stands out for you as someone who's really been involved with this organization and this particular area of broadcast media finance for so long?
2 sessions is a little hard to narrow it down to.
Right, exactly.
I mean, this is probably, I think I've been, I'm going to say almost maybe 15 of these consecutively. And it's some of my favorite things to go to. And for good reason. There's some great people there, which is always the foundation of everything. But the sessions are always great. So this year, I know I've spoken with Deb a little bit, but I'm looking forward to seeing. I mean, she's got 3 great people. She's got Lucy from Sinclair, John from Hearst, and Sam Bush from Saga, who, I think all 3 of them will have very different perspectives on what's going on, and we'll hear a lot from them, obviously. 2 of them being public, and one being a super giant private is going to be great to see how different things play out. Definitely smaller versus big market also. So we're going to get a lot of information from there. There's some good AI sessions. I think that, AI in itself is still a buzzword, but I think we use it in a lot of ways. I think that we may be a little bit slower to adapt in certain ways as we're kind of feeling things out. I know Miller Kaplan uses it in some stuff, and we're obviously working towards other facets. But really, what we're trying to do, and what I've even heard from the recent conference that I was at last week in Boston for the OAAA, is that we need to think about it not as a silo, but ingrained in our operation. And so, to me, we should really be thinking about AI as part and parcel of every presentation that kind of exists. And AI could be anything from robotics and things like that, kind of RPA stuff, all the way through in my mind. It's kind of the same conversation when you have, the term programmatic. What does that mean in the space? It can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. So I think that anything that we can think about from automation standpoint is really what I think about when I still think about AI, is how can we get to an end result faster, whether it be analyzing financials, whether it be doing sales presentations, whether it be trying to fix processes that are mundane. I particularly love the roundtables. I am the co-chair of the radio committee, and so I get to moderate the radio roundtable, which usually has about 50 people there. And I always attend the television roundtable as well, because I just think that there's some great minds in the room, and while you don't go into the nitty gritty of things because of the protection angle, there's definitely a lot of things that experientially you can share that basically does help everyone through and understand what's going on. So those are all important. I've seen a lot of other, I think the other updates on government regs and what the FCC might do is an important thing. I know that there's been a lot of discussion on getting ready for swaps, people's balance sheets getting kind of in order in preparation for what might happen. So I'd like to see what the latest and greatest is with regard to that. I know I saw something today in the trades about a couple dozen senators urging the FCC, and I know Curtis and the NAB have done a great job. So looking forward to obviously Curtis's presentation, but sometimes you just come away and things kind of surprise you, and you just don't know what you're going to get hit with informationally when you go to an event like this. So I just look forward to kind of keeping my eyes and ears open and learning from the people that are there. I mean, there's some inside and outside business people. And I think that as long as your mind is open and you can learn, you can accomplish a lot.
And who knows what swaps will be announced by the time we get to Arlington, Virginia. It's just such a interesting environment, and I just have to ask you one final thought. Alpha Media and Connoisseur Media. This is something that was a big rumor all across the NAB show. We didn't know if it was going to happen. It was definitely going to happen. We didn't hear anything, and then wow, here we go. And I think it speaks a lot about where perhaps the industry might be going, at least on the radio side, in terms of roll-ups and access to capital. So that is always a topic of conversation. Where's the money going to come from? And who is going to perhaps eye another company? Given your assessment of the marketplace, what did you think when that finally came to light?
I was taken aback, but I'm not surprised. I think that Jeff Warshaw has been a huge advocate for audio for as long as I've known him, which goes on the 20-year cycle now. He has always been, pushing for dereg, which is an important part, and finally at a position that hopefully the industry is at. I think that, from what I've read and from how I know Jeff, I don't think that this is an end point. I think this is a launch point. That's, I think, wonderful to see that there's that kind of desirability. I know that he's been looking to grow for a while, and there's some great people at Alpha, and it sounds like, it's going to be a great match and merge of two great companies with great leadership qualities, and I have a lot of respect for it. So I'm excited to see where that goes. I think that everyone's kind of lining up and trying to figure out, how do we do more with less? How do we centralize and hub operations more? How do we do things as efficiently as we can using automation, AI, and things like that, which are all very important to the sustainability of the industry, and they're all trying to figure out other ways to build this 360 view to help the clients, the advertisers, sell their product. And I think that it's important to kind of look at and say that there's definitely a time and a place for both upper funnel and lower funnel transactions, and so if you could be on both sides of the coin, you're in a much better position, I think. So I admire them for continuing in that route.
Well, thank you for your thoughts on this wonderful podcast. It was great to speak with you, Andrew, and safe travels. I look forward to seeing you at MFM in Arlington, Virginia.
Absolutely. See you just in a couple weeks.
Not so much a couple weeks. It's
next week, right?
Yeah. This is going to be distributed May 15th. So if you're watching this on the day that we are sharing this across our platforms, well, indeed, May 18th is the cocktail reception that evening. And then May 19th, bright and early at the Crystal Gateway Marriott, Arlington, Virginia. Time is flying.
You still have time to join us. Apparently, I got to look and make sure I booked my flight now, right? So, but definitely come. And if you are there and you see this, then please come up to me and say hi.
Yes. And like I said, I'll be there all day Monday, May 19th, and you know what I look like. So you can come up to me as well. Andrew Rosen from Miller Kaplan, thank you so much for being our guest on this podcast.
Thanks. Anytime.
And with that, we want to thank you for watching this all new radio and television business report InFOCUS video podcast. It was sponsored by .fm, streaming social podcast or broadcast. Get a .fm domain name by heading over to get.fm today. The InFOCUS video podcast is copyright 2025 by Streamline Publishing and is produced and distributed on the StreamYard platform. Be sure to follow us on our YouTube page, set a bookmark for that. And from Boca Raton, Florida, headquarters of Streamline Publishing and the home of both Radio Inc. magazine and the Radio and Television Business Report. Once again, I'm Adam R. Jacobson. Be sure to find us every business day at rbr.com for the latest in broadcast media business news. And have a great day. We'll see you next time. And if you are going to Washington, D.C. and Arlington, Virginia, home of the MFM conference, we'll see you there. Take care.